thank you for making the adjustment from outside to inside, as the rain came just enough to make us come inside. And so we are good now, so thank you so very much as we are now starting this gathering against hate. We want to thank the Jewish Center, Westchester County Human Rights Commission, the Office of the Court Administration, County Executive George Latimer, and staff for putting this event together. Also, we thank all the partners for their efforts in promoting and joining this event, meant to show the unity of Westchester County and to show the entire world that hate has no home in Westchester County. It was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr., who said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." And so as we are here today, we do it in the spirit of love to drive out hate in every corner of this county, because we want to show the New York State and we want to show the world that we can live together in unity, no matter the color of our skin, no matter our religious differences, that we can all come together and love one another and lift one another up. We have some great speakers for us today, and the very first is Rabbi Evan Hoffman, chair of the Westchester County Board of Rabbis. Rabbi Evan Hoffman is the chair of the Board of Rabbis and the spiritual leader of the Congregation Anshe Sholom in New Rochelle, New York. For many years, he's taught adult education courses in Jewish theology and Jewish history at synagogues around the metropolitan area. And so we present to you Rabbi Evan Hoffman.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming to this gathering against hate. I want to thank the county government for assembling us here and the Jewish Council and UJA for sponsoring this event. If we look to the scriptures and ask ourselves, what does it say about hate? It's a dangerous question. You might not know the answer, but I'll tell you. And it's one of the most important and valuable lessons of the Bible. Leviticus 19:17. "Thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart, but rather shalt reprove him, and not bear sin on account of him." What's happening here? Answer is very simple. Differences between people, ethnic differences, racial differences, religious differences, even petty differences between sub-denominations of the same religion, will cause people, if those differences go unresolved for any length of time, if they fester, to result in hate. And that's not a desirable outcome. Rather, what must happen? Rather, thou shalt reprove thy brother. Nobody likes being rebuked. Nobody likes doing rebuking. I hope not. But open and honest and earnest dialogue is the only way to avoid the undesirable outcome of despising people. And thou shalt not bear sin upon him, because if you don't have that dialogue, if you do not have that free line of sincere communication, and I don't just mean pleasantries and hello, how are you, but a sincere communication, then it's likely, at least in the rough and tumble world of the past and in unpleasant parts of the world today, that it will result in verbal violence or even physical violence. All the things we never, ever want to see in our community. Thank God, in this county, and especially in the recent years, we've gone a long way in having, at least at the religious level, the clergy people have excellent relations between each other of a wide range of religious denominations and affiliations. And I'd like to believe that what exists in the religious domain can extend to all aspects of the civil and secular domain. There's no reason why we can't have open dialogue and positive feelings towards each other. This county sets a very good example, and we should be congratulating ourselves over that example. And so, if hate is bad, and the Bible says hate is bad, then what is good? The very preceding verse is one you all know. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha in the original Hebrew. So, that's our mission. Our mission is to avoid the hate by open communication, and not just feelings of neutrality, but feelings of love. We can do it, and we are doing it here. May we proceed into the future along that same path. And let us say amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now I have the pleasure of bringing to us the Attorney General of the State of New York, Letitia James. Tish James is the 67th Attorney General for the State of New York. With decades of experience and a long record of achievement, she is powerful, effective, and a lifelong public servant. When she was elected in 2018, she became the first woman of color to hold a statewide office in New York and the first woman to be elected Attorney General. I present to you our Attorney General, Letitia James.
Thank you so much. After that invocation, I really just wanted to listen, Rabbi, and so I thank you for allowing me to say a few words this afternoon. First, I want to thank my very good friend and your Westchester County Executive, George Latimer, and the Westchester County Human Rights Commission and all of the organizations that have partnered to organize this important event. I also want to thank the Reverend for those kind words and for that introduction and for your leadership as president of the United Black Clergy of Westchester. And thank you to today's co-sponsors, the Westchester Jewish Council, the UJA Federation of New York. I see Bob Kaplan in the audience, who is my rabbi, and all of the groups involved in this event. Thank you so much, because all of you represent so many different religions and cultures and identities. You have joined together today to show solidarity against hate, because God is love. As I was writing over here, I was thinking about this past month. You know, I marched in the 75th anniversary of Israel, their parade just recently on Sunday. But also I traveled to Buffalo, unfortunately, to commemorate the one-year anniversary of 10 individuals who were murdered at the Top supermarket. I thought about the drag story hour, where individuals basically harassed 2 city council members and basically attacked their children and vandalized their homes. I think about all of that in a month where in Orange County, I had the opportunity, unfortunately, to bring a lawsuit against individuals who did not want the Jewish community to build housing. I say all of that to say this is a month where we celebrate the 75th anniversary of Israel. This is the month where we celebrate Juneteenth. This is the month where we march in pride. All of those events culminate together, and that's why all of us are here today. So I'd rather focus on the good as opposed to the bad, because this really is a testament to the unity and the strength of Westchester and to New York State. New York has long served as a symbol for the vibrant diversity of our country, but we know that bias, unfortunately, and hate and discrimination continue to fester in our community. We see increases in acts of racism and anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Asian hate, and attacks on the LGBTQ community. We cannot allow tragedies and vile hatred to become the norm. We cannot allow individuals to divide us. We must stand together, arm in arm, shoulder to shoulder, with no space between us. We know that any act of hate against one of us is really an act of hate against all of us. But the good news is that there are more of us than there are of them. We must move forward with empathy in our hearts and collaboration on our minds to craft a better future, a future filled with love and compassion. Decisive and consistent action is necessary, and that's why my office has led the way in efforts to fight hate, not only in New York, but all across this country. We've gone after companies and small businesses that try to discriminate against communities. We've sued a gun manufacturer that was used to aid the Buffalo shooter that claimed 10 innocent lives at Top supermarket. We investigated social media platforms which are used to, unfortunately, promote hate. We passed legislation which can help prevent violence, and we created a new office specifically designed to investigate and to stop hate crimes. And we will always stand up for the rights and dignities of all New Yorkers. I'm encouraged by all of the individuals who have come out despite the weather here today, and by the inspiring words that I look forward to hearing from all of the speakers. But we also know that words must be met with actions if we are going to confront and address the issues impacting our communities. Words mean absolutely nothing. It's the question really is what will you do for your fellow New Yorker? And that is why I particularly want to shout out and thank your county executive. Unlike other elected officials, unlike some other elected officials around this country, no name in particular, we are not in the business of stoking irrational fears and prejudices for political gain. We do it because that's who we are, whether there's a camera around or not. We know that our high offices must be used to help everyone thrive in this state and to basically achieve the American dream, to build bridges of commonality and not bridges of division. And of course, to better ourselves and to appeal to our better angels as opposed to our demons. That's what we must do as a society. Continue to stand up against hate. Continue to stand with communities that might be different from your own. And say it loud and say it strong that New York has no place for hate. Not now and not ever. By standing together, we can banish hatred and intolerance and instead embrace our shared humanity and revel in our beautiful diversity, which is our strength. And that is why events like this are so important and why I'm so honored to be a part of today's event. I want to thank all of you for showing up. I want to thank all of you for spreading love. I want all of you to recognize that really there is no difference between you and I. The difference between you and I are really artificial construct. What binds us is our love and our compassion for one another and our recognition that we're all in this together. God bless you and thank you.
We thank our Attorney General for those wonderful words. I forgot to introduce who I am. I am the Reverend Dr. Stephen W. Pogue. I pastor the Greater Centennial AME Zion Church in Mount Vernon, New York. I'm also the president of the United Black Clergy of Westchester, and I serve as vice chair of the Westchester County Human Rights Commission, and I see our executive director, Tejas Sanchala, here, who's doing a wonderful job to help eradicate hate in our county. Next is Judy Triola, the Loft LGBT Center executive director. Judy joined the Loft team as executive director in November 2014. She brings a wealth of experience in both the not-for-profit sector and the arts and entertainment industry to her leadership position at the Loft. During her time at the Loft, she has significantly grown the Loft's capacity to deliver needed programs and services to the LGBT people living in Westchester County and surrounding areas. Judy is a proud member of the Westchester County Women's Advisory Board and has worked in countless other ways to improve the lives of people in Westchester County. Judy, please come.
Well, it's hard to follow that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm proud to live in Westchester. I was born and raised here. But the county executive we have now and the administration we have now is the thing I'm most proud of. I moved away for a long time and I came back to head up the Loft quite a few years ago. And I have to say, over the last several years, I've seen things get worse across the country. We all have. And that people are allowed to hate out loud. They are, there's a cost to hate. I mean, really, that's what it's about. There's a cost to hate, and the cost is lives. In the LGBTQ+ community, the amount of suicides have risen, the amount of substance abuse and mental health, homelessness. And I don't mean to bring everyone down, but it is exhausting. And I would like to give a round of applause to everyone here that works in the nonprofit sector or in government that is giving back to the community as a whole. I know it's exhausting, and you do an amazing job, so thank you. hate is a horrible, horrible thing. Anger can be a productive emotion. And I love when people come together, and we do have to come together. There's strength in numbers. And look at the things that are happening and be proactive in addressing them. Library book banning. Run for your school board, folks. Get on there, be a voice for everybody, not just a faction of the community that's afraid of anyone that's not like them. Ignorance breeds hate, but as somebody said earlier on, if we communicate and we're willing to listen, we have an opportunity to change things. And that's not always easy. It's not always easy talking to somebody who doesn't like you or is afraid of you. But I find that if I can plant a seed, then maybe something will grow. Something like love, or, you know, I hate saying tolerance because I don't want to be tolerated. Nobody wants to be tolerated. A 5-year-old is tolerated. I want to be able to be who I am, and for everybody to be able to be who they are. So thank you very much for inviting me to speak here today. And thank you. I am very grateful to live in a county with someone like George Latimer, who is giving us an opportunity to be who we are and to be proud of who we are and to support us not only during Pride Month, but all year round. So thank you. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Judy. 1 Peter chapter 4 says, most of all, love each other as if your life depended upon it. Love makes up for practically anything. It takes more effort and energy to hate than it does to love. You don't have to like everything about somebody, but you can love them in spite of differences, and you'll see that unity will happen organically when we remember that most of all, love each other like our life depends upon it. And we will see great things happen and continue to happen in our community. Next speaker is Mayo Bartlett, highly regarded criminal defense attorney. Prior to opening his own law firm, he served as the chief of the Bias Crimes Unit for the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. He's also helped develop a juvenile hate crime offenders program and is co-founder of Safe Passage, a youth law forum that brings issues of law and policy to the classroom. Mayo also served as the co-chair of the county's Police Reform and Reimagination Task Force, and currently is a consultant to the county's Human Rights Commission. Mayo, won't you come?
Good afternoon. I am tremendously honored to be here and to look out and to see so many people who are here because they want to be here. And it just reminds me that everybody's not necessarily as fortunate. I'm here today. I lost my mother-in-law on Friday. She was 93 years old. She was raised in a time where we had many different challenges, and some of the challenges that she faced, we still face. But she had definite challenges in her life. She had difficulty getting a mortgage. She had difficulty, along with my father-in-law, buying the home that they ended up owning for 50 years, more than 50 years. But she was a person who loved and loved very strongly and deeply and loved everybody that she came in contact with. She may not agree with you, but she loved people. And she shared that love, and she was a model of what we ought to be. So I'm going to, Mr. Sanchala, my dear friend Tejas Sanchala, who is the executive director of the Human Rights Commission, told me that if I went beyond 4 minutes, that Sandman would come from Showtime at the Apollo and take me away, so I'm going to be looking to my left and right from time to time. But I feel that I have to quote Tejas because he always says, You know, I don't want to just talk about problems, I want to talk about solutions. Okay, and I think that that's a lot of vision that's embodied in that statement. And he also says human rights is not a pie. Okay, there's enough for every single person. And if we recognize that, we're not competing with each other for a limited resource. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about my time when I was in the DA's office, when I ran the bias crime unit. We were fortunate enough to have had people who had the vision to come up with the juvenile offenders program for nonviolent hate crime offenders. And it was restorative justice. And we would find that quite often the child that's anti-Semitic couldn't understand why somebody else was anti-black, and they couldn't understand why somebody might be anti-gay. And the more they learned, the more we saw that lots of their hatred was not deeply ingrained in them. They were young, they were formative, it was what they heard, it was what they saw. And as they learned more and listened to speakers from different backgrounds, and we would have them listen to 10 speakers, and we'd end with a Holocaust survivor and a survivor from the Rwandan genocide, they couldn't understand how they did what they did. And some of them were not the primary movers in whatever had happened. Sometimes simply being there was enough to let something happen that otherwise might not have happened. And we had students that said, hey, they want to make this their life's work. You know, helping other people not make the mistakes they made and helping other people see their fellow neighbors as brothers and sisters. So, you know, we did lots of trials in the DA's office, and a lot of them required DNA experts. And I always loved that because I would always ask the DNA expert, what is race? And invariably they would say it's the frequency of genes. And they would also say that, you know, nobody in the world could be more than a 50th cousin, which would mean we're all related. Okay, so if we're all related, how can I not want for you what I want for myself or for my family, for people I hold dear? And chances are the reason I may not hold you dear is I probably haven't had a chance to meet you, or I met you under different circumstances. And if it had changed just by one flip of a coin, if the parents lived in one town as opposed to another, we'd be friends instead of possibly competitors. And I have to go back to what Judy said, and I think it was said so well. Be a voice for everyone. We talk about not being a bystander. And then as it evolved, we'd say be an active bystander. And now we say be an upstander. Be somebody who is an ally. Be the ally you would want for yourself. And if you're that person, then you'll strengthen your community. And as I think right now, there are unfortunately many communities throughout this country that are divided in more ways than you can imagine. I mean, they're divided based on race. They're divided based upon religion. They're divided by things we can't even imagine, many of which are perceived. But if we treat people the way we'd like to be treated, if we seek truth and justice, if we're honest, if we're open to hearing people tell us about some of the things we may have done, and if we love our neighbors, then that's a path. And the greatest thing is that by doing that, we are models for children because the kids don't know. They repeat what they see, what they hear us do behind closed doors. Some of us may, say a joke or say something we think is funny behind closed doors, and you'd never say it here, but children hear that. And so that becomes part of whom they end up being. And in my mind, I'm about to wrap up, but in my mind, when we talk about the American dream, to me at least, the American dream is about having the freedom to be who you are. And so the one thing that hate always did, which made it such a terrible thing, is that it attacks people based upon who you are or who somebody perceives you to be. Doesn't matter if that's even who you are. So if someone targets you because you wear a rainbow, and that means in their mind that you're gay and that they believe they have the ability to harm someone who's gay, well, that's hurting every single person in the community, period. So I just am extremely thankful to live in a county like Westchester County where we do this every year, okay, where we can share this, where we can talk about how we brought so many people together, and where we can look toward one another and talk about how we can extend new bridges to one another so we can strengthen community, and so that no one group in our county can be targeted as the other. So I thank you so much for indulging me and letting me go just to the 5th minute. but it's a pleasure again. It always warms my heart to be here, and I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Our condolences to you, Mayo, and your family at the loss of your mother-in-law, and we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers. Next is Carola Bracco, who is the Executive Director of Neighborhood Links. She has a strong personal connection to the Neighborhood Links mission, strengthening the whole community through the healthy integration of immigrants. As a first-generation American born of immigrant parents from Bolivia, Carola understands the challenges that accompany the immigration experience in America and is dedicated to inspiring healthy integration in the community. Carola is bilingual and bicultural and is driven by her passion for empowering immigrant families and advocating for personal growth through education and economic development.
Thank you, Reverend. It's really a privilege to be here with all of you today. While some people in this country choose to hate and are using immigrants as pawns in their political power plays, at Neighbors Link and here in Westchester County, we're working on practical solutions that are humane, dignified, and smart. No one wants to leave their home country, their family, everything that is familiar. Every story is different, but people come here because they can't earn enough to feed their families. They are threatened by violence, and they have been targeted by their own government because of their political views, their sexual orientation, or their religion. Most immigrants come seeking asylum, and this, by the way, is a legal way of entering this country. But there is one more reason that immigrants come. They have potential, grit, smarts, ingenuity. They have an enormous contribution to make, and they want to belong. En este país es un tiempo difícil para nuestra comunidad. No sabemos qué pasará con nuestras familias y nuestras amistades. It's become a very difficult time for our community as new asylum seekers come to this country. They are fearful for their families and fearful about what is to come, and families are afraid of being torn apart. Pero ya es hora. Tenemos que secar nuestras lágrimas y sacudir el miedo y crear un nuevo camino. We have to shake off our fear, dry our tears, and make a new path. We're here today to show our unity. We're here today to insist on inclusion. And the most important thing is that we're here today to stick together. All of us share a commitment to each other. We are here to tell our community that we want everyone to be safe from hate. Today and every day, we are going to stand shoulder to shoulder together. Estamos unidos en contra del odio y damos nuestro apoyo a los miembros de la comunidad que están afligidos para hacerles saber que no están solos. Lo que más apreciamos de nuestra comunidad, la amabilidad, la diversidad, la inclusión y la libertad de vivir con seguridad y dignidad, siempre somos más fuertes juntos. Today we're here to share our feeling of community, to create a feeling of safety for immigrants that live here, to change the tone of the conversation, to highlight that we are more the same than we are different, and to highlight that immigrants make a significant contribution to our economy, that immigrants are the future workforce of this country. We may speak different languages, but we all speak with one voice. Todos merecemos la oportunidad de vivir con dignidad. We are here to say that we support each other's dreams, so we need to dream high. It's a privilege to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Our next speaker is Bill Kong. He served on the board of directors for OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates of Westchester and Hudson Valley chapter for over 25 years and is currently the vice president for advocacy. He has tirelessly advocated for Asian American community in the county for decades. He's received many accolades for his work in the community, and Bill is proud to have served in the U.S. Army from 1966 to 1968, and he's a combat veteran and holds the Purple Heart for his service in the Army.
Thank you very much. OC Advocate is an advocacy group, a national advocacy group for Asian Pacific Islander American rights. This is our 50th year. So we're celebrating our 50 years advocacy. And I think through today's discussion of anti-hate, the two key words are educate, communicate. And I think what makes this country great is we have people here from every continent, every country, every tribe in the world here in this country, whether you came here 10,000 years ago or yesterday. And I think that the two key words, educate, we need to educate our kids, the various culture, background, where we come from, or to understand our culture, whether it be from Jamaica, from Nigeria, from Ireland, or from China. And this is something that needs to be in the schools, teach the kids. The understanding will bring communication. The kids will ask questions, and we could discuss and have understanding. I think one of the biggest problems going on today is that we lack communication and understanding because a lot of people don't understand your background, right? Just because you speak a different language, you look different than the rest of the American, they say, oh, well, we don't understand you. That's why we don't like you, right? But the background and the culture is important. So even if you're African-American black, but you don't all come from the same background. Some of you came from Jamaica, some of you from Africa recently, some of you came to this country 200, 300 years ago. So we have to kind of communicate understanding our cross-culture. So I think that through the speech today, and the two key words is educate, communicate, and we need to open dialogues across the board in this country and keep this country great. We have varieties of people, and that makes to build this country even 200 some years, but actually the country was built more than 300 years ago here. So we need to keep the country great, but we need to continue to educate and communicate. Thank you.
Let's educate and communicate. That is so, so essential. Imam Shafiq Chase, the Islamic Center of New Rochelle. Imam Chase is a lifelong Westchester advocate who has lent his voice in prayer countywide at numerous events aimed at spreading the knowledge and understanding of Islam. In addition to his responsibilities at the Islamic Center of New Rochelle, Imam Chase is a partner with the Westchester Jewish Center Interfaith Clergy Group, which travels to various sites aimed at learning more about each other's faith and each other's culture. We invite the Imam to come now.
Mr. Chairman, County Executive, Attorney General, and to our lovely audience, good afternoon. I would like to propose a question. Does hate have a cure? Does greed have cure? Does arrogance have cure? Can you leave here and go to your doctor and say, prescribe me some medication? I have this vice of hate. Can I go and admit myself in an institution to be cured of hate? And I would begin, like our Rabbi Hoffman, with a story from the scripture. the beginning story, the first story, when God created our father Adam and says to the angel, prostrate to him. Among the angels, there was an entity called Satan who refused to prostrate. And we see the evidence of reasoning at the beginning of the story. Why did he refuse to prostrate? He says to God, you have created him from fire, and you have created man from clay. I am superior than clay. Ana khayru minhu. He spoke in the third person. I'm better than him. I am white. He's black. I'm better than him. If you look at the preamble, how it begins, we the people. We the people, we begin, is it all the people or a specific people? If we look a few paragraphs down from the preamble, we see excluded is certain people from we the people. But since we have no cure for these vices, and we in this space we were supposed to be in front of the statue of Dr. King, but because of the weather, we're in this beautiful room. How do we move forward? He says the reason why we hate is because we don't know each other. And the reason why we don't know each other is that we don't communicate with each other. And I had the pleasure to just return in March with many of my colleagues sitting in the audience, head by, our scholar. And we were in Birmingham, where we met with the only surviving person, the last surviving person that saw Dr. King. His name is Bishop Calvin Woods. And you want to see hate, what man is capable of doing, that if killing is not enough, taking a life, we need to mutilate the body. I was just reading coming here that as we sit here talking about hate, the trial of the life, the synagogue in Pittsburgh is going on right now. It's happening in real time. And the expert on the autopsy testified today, and he says, Cecil Rosenthal, he counted 6 bullets in his body, 1 in his head, 6. That's hate. We're about to see among our fate the largest gathering of people on the planet on the 20th of June, which is called the Hajj. And we will all see this. When you go into the Hajj, you have to stop before you enter into the precinct of that house, the house of Abraham. And you have to strip yourself of the clothing that you come with. You can't enter with the clothing of hate. You have to remove hate. You have to remove the clothing of arrogance, the clothing of greed, and you have to put 2 pieces of white cloth with no stitches, even to show that the stitch, your stitch is not better than my stitch. And the first thing that we do is to circumambulate that cube. And 7 times we go around, and every time we're looking at a semicircle at that cube, reflecting that we are here because of the sacrifice of a woman. Not only a woman, was a slave woman from Egypt. Not only a slave woman, was a black woman to show the world. Her name is Hajar, to show the world. Love, we have to replace hate with love. That we got to get to know each other. And I remember I shared with our Rabbi Menachem when we were on this journey. Many times we find ourselves at a table with a rabbi and imam and Reverend Kelly. It's like a joke is about to happen, But I said to them, I said, I felt so comfortable in this space, the space that's supposed to be uncomfortable with a rabbi and an imam and a reverend. that we were able to share things and felt comfortable that it's okay if we say something wrong because the love is there to correct it. I would like to complete with a verse from the Quran, which is in the chapter called Ma'idah, the table spread, the Last Supper. And the verse is verse 8 of the 5th chapter. And Almighty God says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamina lillah, if you believe in God. Shuhada'a bil qist, stand up for justice. Stand up for justice. And don't let hatred for people come in the way of bringing justice. So we are here in a room, of justice. This is a room where, my wife is an attorney, and she asked me where I'm going. She comes here often. I said, I'm going to the 8th floor. She says, I don't, that's probably one of the judge's chamber. I don't know, So these are halls of justice. And justice, hatred is the most injustice thing that you can stand, that, Martin Luther King says, if you don't stand for justice, then you will fall for anything. And here, we're here to echo the word with our friends and our colleagues to stand for justice. Wherever there's hate, bring justice, bring the light of justice, the light of love. May Almighty God bless all of you.
Thank you, Imam. If you bear with us, we just have a few more speakers. Our district attorney, Mimi Rocha, has dedicated her life to pursuing justice for victims, keeping our community safe for victims, and working for a fair criminal justice system for all. Our district attorney served as the Assistant United States Attorney in the Southern District of New York for 16 and a half years, where she oversaw the prosecution of organized crime, gun traffickers, corrupt public officials, narcotics, sex traffickers, and child predators. In 2011, under President Obama, Mimi Rocha was promoted to the U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara as Chief of the Westchester Division for the Department of Justice. Mimi Rocha served as primary liaison with law enforcement agencies and other prosecutorial offices such as the Westchester County District Attorney's Office, and coordinated and chaired multi-county task forces on specific issues such as human trafficking and the opioid overdose epidemic. Mimi Rocha received numerous Department of Justice awards, including the 2016 Woman in Federal Law Enforcement Leadership Award. I present to you our District Attorney, Mimi Rocha.
I think I used up all my time there with the bio, so I'll work on shortening that. Thank you. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here. And this is one of the events I really look forward to each year. And I remember it last year on the plaza. It feels a little different here in the marbled room, but special in a different way, because we're a little more somber and a little more reflective, and that's okay for right now, for where we are in this country. But what I love about this event is that we stand for something. We're standing for unity and togetherness. And so often when we gather, it's because we're, trying to work against something that we don't like. So I find it really special to be here standing together for something. I'm going to talk a little bit about my father, because I think the lesson I learned from him is the most powerful lesson I can bring to this conversation. And what I learned from him is that hate against one community is really an attack on every community. And the reason I learned that lesson from him is because he grew up in the time of the Holocaust, and he escaped with his family from the Nazis. And he went to what was then Palestine. He was one of the very fortunate few to get there. Many of his family did not. He was a teenager, and eventually he made his way here to this country with very little and pursued his dream of becoming an architect. And so I never lose sight of the fact that my father was an immigrant who escaped political persecution, hatred, extermination, the same way that so many immigrants, as Carola spoke about, are doing today. And while we might come from different backgrounds and different circumstances, it's really all the same thing that we're seeking here in the United States. We're seeking a place to feel safe and be safe. And unfortunately, as many have spoken about, we have seen a rise in hate crimes, in hate incidents, in bias incidents around this country. Some of them are stoked intentionally by people for their own political or other purposes. And some of them are born from the extremism on the internet, and we've seen a rise in that. I see it in my own work. And it is something that we obviously need to come together. We need our law enforcement, as is here the case in Westchester, to be vigilant, to be as proactive as possible. And that is something that we are trying to do, to be even more proactive than before. Because honestly, I never want to have another hate crime case to prosecute as long as I am a prosecutor anywhere. I hope I never have to. But unfortunately, we have, and we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law if the conduct warrants it. We have, and we will. But really, what this is about preventing the hate. And something Mayo spoke about many years ago when he was in the Westchester DA's office about teaching young people to be upstanders. And we have picked up on that. And I have an amazing hate crime coordinator. I won't mention her by name because it probably would embarrass her, but she is here today. And an amazing and dedicated hate crime analyst. And they are working tirelessly to do many things, amongst them educating young people in this county, together with the Human Rights Commission, together with partners like Mayo. And they go around and they do these upstander trainings. And so when I think about where I started, talking about what I learned, unfortunately, from my father, but something I try to bring forward today. And then I look at my daughter, who's a freshman in high school. And when I tell you this group of friends, and I watch them and I'm with them, and they are so inclusive, and they are all identify with different genders and backgrounds and speak different languages, and they are so tolerant and so, although I don't like the word tolerant either, Judy, I agree, but inclusive. And it just doesn't even occur to them that they should be any other way. And I'm not naive to think that everybody everywhere is like that, but it gives me hope that I can be part of a family that came from escaping the Nazis to a family that has a daughter that is part of a group like that. And that gives me hope, and I hope gives you all hope. Thank you.
Thank you so very much to our District Attorney, Westchester County, Mimi Rocha. Next, we'll hear from our Board of Legislative Chair, Vedat Ghashi. Chairman Ghashi brings a wealth of experience to his new position as chairman of the Westchester County Board of Legislators. Chairman is the first Muslim and Albanian legislator in the Board of Legislators history. Born in Kosovo at the age of 4, he and his family fled the oppressive socialist regime and fled to the United States. And since then, he's been a resident of Westchester County for over 2 decades. He's earned a BA from Connecticut College, where he was invited to serve on the Board of Trustees as a young alumni trustee. Vedat earned his Juris Doctorate from Seton Hall University, and during his studies, he interned for Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, then at the Second Circuit County Court under Congressman Lee Hamilton on the House International Relations Committee. I present to you our Board of Legislative Chair, Vedat Ghashi.
Again, those introductions are fantastic. Thank you again, Reverend Pope. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank all of our elected officials, including, I should mention really quickly that we are joined today by two of my colleagues, Legislator Erica Pierce and Legislator Jewel Williams-Johnson, seated comfortably in the chairs that they always spend. I'd like to thank our spiritual and community leaders who've come and shared some amazingly powerful words. And thank you, of course, all of you here who've joined to gather against hate in all its forms. And of course, thank you to the Westchester Jewish Council for always being on the forefront of organizing events like this that promote healing and understanding. As was just mentioned, I'm the chairman of the Board of Legislators. Normally I sit there. And actually, unless I'm mistaken, I think this is the first time I'm speaking at this podium. But it's an honor to be here. The rain might be disappointing for some, but for me it's a tremendous honor to be able to have something like this here. As was mentioned, with my election, I became the first Albanian American to serve as chairman of this board and the first legislator of the Muslim faith to serve in this position. I'm also not shy to bring up that I'm an immigrant, and for a time I was an undocumented immigrant. At a time when other communities are trying to build walls to prevent asylum seekers from coming into our communities, and that's outside this community, and some within this community would try to do that. I'm incredibly proud to live in Westchester County, where we recognize that diversity and inclusion are our strength rather than a cross that we have to bear. And for that reason, we don't attempt to explain away or to exclude or, Judy, to tolerate. We celebrate our diversity. You know, as a child, I never thought that something like becoming chairman of the Board of Legislators would be available to someone like me. But that's the American dream. And that American dream is still alive. When some seek to build fences and keep others out, please know that we here in Westchester are committed to breaking down those barriers. To that child living in America today, be he Albanian, Muslim, or be he of any other, be it gender, race, creed, or sexual orientation, please know that we are committed to breaking down those barriers and to create the opportunity for everyone to achieve that American dream. Because that is the promise of this country. Because the American dream is not just about prosperity. It's about the promise of living freely, of living safely, and living equally amongst the millions of others who make this place our home. You know, one of the things we do here at the Board of Legislators is we hold monthly heritage celebrations. We have the events where we honor communities like the Asian American community, the African American community, and like last night where we hosted the LGBTQ plus community. And it's fantastic. Each of these are inspiring and positive cases that merit that celebration. And while that is amazing, there is also a shared undercurrent that each of these communities must combat hate and discrimination on a daily basis. That is a reality, and it's a devastating one to accept. So we don't accept it. We will not accept it. And we will fight every day in ways big and small to combat that hate and ignorance that unfortunately pervades our society. We vow to speak out when we encounter it, not just from strangers, but from amongst our neighbors, our friends, and our family. Every small gesture against hate is an incremental movement towards love and understanding. And as a county legislator, as a county legislature, we have a crucial role and a unique opportunity to help in this effort. And as the newly elected chairman, on behalf of this board, we vow to continue to see creative and effective mechanisms to promote that harmony and mutual respect for all our county's residents. I feel truly blessed to live and work in a county like Westchester that values and makes time for something like this on Tuesday at 4 p.m. of a rainy day. Thank you for coming together and sharing your messages and committing to eradicating that hate. It's a tremendous honor. Thank you.
There's a song by gospel artist Hezekiah Walker that I believe is fitting for the moment in which we gather. The words are very simply, I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, agree with me. It is His will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. I love you. I need you to survive. And here's the part I like. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. And that's how we need to look at every one of our neighbors in our community, that I need you to survive. That I love you. You pray for me. I'll pray for you. I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. It has been my pleasure to be your Master of Ceremony for today. And I am so grateful and thankful to be able to present the last person that is going to speak to us today. And that is our outstanding county executive, George Latimer. He is one who has done so many great things for this county in his time as county executive, and we're just so grateful to be able to work with him. I could probably say so many great things about him without reading the bio, but I'll stay on script. County Executive Latimer has worked with all stakeholders on key social reforms, including the Police Reform and Reimagining Task Force, banning gay conversion therapy, signing the anti-wage theft law and the wage history anti-discrimination law, among others. He's worked to electrify the county Beeline's bus fleet and modernize all the county's facilities for a green future. County exec is a sound business experience. His record of public service and his dedication to Westchester County has been the driving force behind the efforts for this last 35 years. Using inclusion and openness as the foreground, he is fighting to make Westchester County a destination for all people to live, work, and enjoy. And so it gives me a great pleasure to present to us from Mount Vernon, New York, our County Executive, George Latimer.
I do believe the applause was for the line, Reverend, that you said, the last speaker. But I'm very happy that we all came together today. I have two tasks being up here. One of them is the one that I always get, which is to make sure that we recognize all of the individuals who are here that have done some special work, and so let me take care of that task right at the outset. We've been joined today by our county clerk, Tim Idoni. Our deputy county executive, my partner in all of this, Ken Jenkins. I have some other key members of my team that are with us here today. Joan McDonald, our director of operations. And at various times, some folks have and have not been here, some have had to leave, but we've got Chris Steers, we have Crystal Collins, Aviva Meyer, Joe Scamato, John Borst, and Catherine Chaffee, all of whom have contributed greatly to this effort that are here. Calvin Fortino is with us here, and I probably missed a couple of people. There are three people on my team that have two hats, one head, but two hats, And I'll recognize them for the hats that they wear once it's past 5 o'clock, since we're now at 5:30, which is Dobbs Ferry Village trustee, Shari Rosen Asher, who was here earlier, Greenberg Town Councilwoman Ellen Hendricks, and New Rochelle Councilwoman Martha Lopez. As mentioned by the chair of the board, Vedat Gashi, we are in this room as a backup, and I want to thank the chairman and the members of the Board of Legislators for letting their home be our home. This is my home for 13 years, but that was then. It's their home now, and thank you for letting us have this here to back it up. And of course, as he mentioned, but they get 2 mentions because they're the Board of Legislators, I need them. County Legislators Jewel Williams Johnson and County Legislator Erica Lang Pierce is with us here today. And I want to recognize that we have with us the spouse of a county legislator who was kind enough to be here, although Damon Marr could not be here. Deb Marr is here. Deb, thank you for being with us here. We have other elected officials that are with us at various times. Some may have left us as we went along. White Plains Common Councilwoman Victoria Presser. We're grateful to have with us also, let me just take down the list. Do I have almost everybody? It looks like I've got just about everybody. If I miss somebody, I'm going to hear about it as soon as this thing is over. But, and of course, the presence and being able to stay for the duration of this, that is not something that is underestimated. The terrific Attorney General for the state of New York, my friend, but more importantly, our leader, Letitia James. Tish, thank you. The calendar notes that today is June 6th, and on this date in history, there were 2 impressive sacrifices that occurred in history. The first sacrifice was the sacrifice of thousands of lives on the beaches of Normandy, Omaha Beach, Utah Beach, on June 6th, 1944, when Americans and Canadians and British and others landed to liberate Europe from the clutch of Hitler and Nazism. They died that day on the beach, making a sacrifice, and those that survived went on to fight still another year plus of war that was essential in order for us to have the world that we have today. Let us remember those that lived, fought, and died on D-Day, on this very day 79 years ago. There was also a sacrifice that happened 55 years ago. On that date, United States Senator Robert F. Kennedy died in Los Angeles, California. I was a young boy, and I thought quite a bit of Senator Kennedy. His older brother was President of the United States, but I was a little young when that happened. That happened actually on my birthday. But Senator Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, was one that I followed in my early teen years. And he spoke of things that I believe to be true. And now I have the opportunity at a much smaller level of government to try to help with this great team that we have to implement those things. But at a very young age, he stood up for what he thought was right, and it cost him his life on that sacrifice on this very day 55 years ago. We are different. We're different because we're old. We're different because we're young. We're different because we're middle-aged. We're different because we're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, Baha'i, Sikh, secular humanist, or no particular religious faith at all. We're different because we're left-handed, right-handed, and ambidextrous. We're different because we trace our parentage back to Europe, or we trace our parentage back to Asia, or we trace our parentage back to Africa, or we trace our parentage back to South America, or to the islands of the Pacific, or the islands of the Caribbean. We're different because we hold liberal beliefs, we hold conservative beliefs, we hold moderate beliefs. We're different because some of us were born with disabilities, infirmities. We're different because we're men, women, and those with other gender identities. We can't deny that we're different. And if you look to the person to the right and to the person to the left of you, you'll see the differences, in many cases, are obvious. But we are the same. We all eat and drink to survive. We all feel pain. We all love and want to be loved. We all have limits to our intelligence and our abilities. We all laugh and we all cry. Ultimately, we all die. Every one of us. Every left-hander, every right-hander, every person who's black, Asian, Hispanic, European white, of mixed heritage. We all die, whether we are liberal or conservative, moderate, disability, young, old, middle-aged, whatever our religions are. We Christians die, those who are Jewish die, those who are Hindu die, those who are Sikhs die, we all die. When we see that our differences are greater than our similarities, we allow ourselves to categorize people as the other. When we see that our similarities are greater than our differences, then we begin to understand and act on our common humanity. The question that we have to ask ourselves, can we rise? Can we achieve the things we want to achieve as individuals or collectively by focusing on our differences, by working those differences, by wallowing in those differences, by glorifying those differences? I believe we can only rise when we touch that common humanity. Before we let our hatreds snuff out our humanity, before we worship the God of social media, where every opinion, unvetted or not, is treated as an equal opinion, before we let the television station we watch or the talk radio station that we listen to tell us about our differences and the other, we need to step back. We need to have a moment of clarity. We need to understand the path we're on. The path that we're on when we raise our differences above our similarities leads us all to the death of all of us. We cannot succeed as a society. We cannot succeed as a world focusing on why some people are not like other people. This gathering, the work of the Human Rights Commission here in this county, the work that Tish James and Mimi Rocha are doing, the work that legislators are doing, all of that work is to find a way forward together. To find a way forward together. That is our challenge as we leave, to find a way forward together, to work on the things that unite us, not to minimize that there aren't differences, and in fact to see in those differences ways that we can each be better in our own demographic package. But there are pressures out there in this society, and we have to push back against them. We have to push back against them with force. We have to know that we're right. Those of us who have faith traditions that back that up, who tell us in the variety of sacred scriptures that it is right for us to move this way, we should not be shy, because the voices of hatred are very loud, and they have a siren call. We have to break that siren call, or else it will break this society and break this world. I have confidence. I have confidence when I look at this room. I have confidence when I listen to the preaching of the variety of people of the clergy who are here, when I sit and talk with my colleagues in government, and we work through our differences to find solutions. I have confidence. And you should have confidence too, because in the words of the great spiritualists, we shall overcome.
Thank you all for coming.